Wow, higher than the police and health service budget. That's our debt. I'm joined now by the Director and Chief Economist of Econometrix, Dr. Azar Jammine. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, let's look at the rand. It looked a little stronger. Can we give the Finance Minister credit for that today?
It's possible that we can give a little bit of that, but, it's mainly international markets that are determining all this. But I do think that there was probably a little bit of a relief in the same way as some of the weakness of the rand yesterday may have been inspired by fears among some investors that there was a chance that the government would succumb to pressures from left-wing elements within the country for the government to embark upon massive expenditure and abandon fiscal rectitude, which was not the case at all.
In terms of our overall direction, is it fair to say that we're pretty much in the same direction as we were under Tito Mboweni, minus the aloe plant?
Very much so. I think that Godongwana has persisted with as much fiscal rectitude as is possible. He, of course, has deferred discussion about extra social grants to the February budget next year, and that's, of course, the big elephant in the room, because he knows, as well as many of us economists, many of us, not all of them, that we believe that such a grant would be totally unaffordable. But what he has done in the interim is given some relief to which was announced back in August and incorporated now officially into the MTBPS to alleviate some of the pain experienced by businesses and consumers as a result of the COVID crisis and the looting and social unrest that occurred in July.
We got a bit of a windfall from that commodities boom, which was very much needed, but the minister warning we cannot rely on that and that some prices are already softening. He did seem to be very hopeful about SARS' ability to collect more tax, particularly from those who are being artful dodgers. Is that where most of our money is going to come, or is it mostly investments that we are going to be relying on?
No, there's no question that, and for me, the most positive feature of this mini budget was precisely the statement that Godongwana made, that we cannot rely on these commodity price windfalls to continue. But clearly, what we do desperately need is more investment, because the only way in which we are going to get out of this fiscal predicament is to grow the economy faster. What was a little depressing was to see the Treasury's own forecasts for economic growth over the next 3 years, beyond this year when growth is quite good at over 5%, but for the next 3 years thereafter, 1.7% per annum. That's really just not good enough, and barely enough to keep pace with the growth in the population, let alone to make inroads into the rising trend of unemployment.
Yeah, and the minister also making the point that what happened in July really did destroy investor confidence. So to win back investment confidence, there's a lot of work ahead. I wanted to ask you about Eskom, because of course we've heard a little bit of positive news today that we're now in stage 2, and by tomorrow the power cuts will be off for now. But we know that there are it's a massive budgetary hole, and stable electricity in and of itself is the one thing that investors need as well to feel safe and secure about where they're doing business. Did you hear enough today, not only about Eskom financially, but also this just transition to green energy, which we have to do? It's absolutely globally important, but there's such a concern that it might shed too many jobs.
I think the minister was probably very cautious about saying too much about Eskom, because this whole concept of just transition and dealing with the offer of a $8.5 billion loan to facilitate the transition to renewables and away from coal has become a little bit of a hot potato within the ruling alliance between those who believe that it could result in huge job losses in the coal mining industry and those who actually believe that we do need to go the way of renewables to try and alleviate the load shedding episodes that we've got. And I think that Godongwana probably deliberately steered clear of getting into too much detail there.
It's interesting, we're just a week since our local government election, and he made the point that 43 municipalities are in a complete crisis financially. 100 more are on the brink. What did you make of the plans? Is there actually a windfall coming, or is it actually going to be a slow pullback and less for service delivery?
I think it's going to be a very slow pullback. And I mean, he alluded to it as one of the elements of structural reform, namely to improve the capacity of the state and especially the capacity of municipalities. But so long as the ruling party persists with cadre deployment, it's very difficult to see how it will be able to ameliorate the capacity of municipalities to operate efficiently and to implement projects the government itself would like to do. There was, again, just a smidgen of information on infrastructural investment, because therein lies the heart of how we can start recovering this economy and improving service delivery.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. Econometrix Director and Chief Economist, Azar Jammine, Dr. Azar Jammine.